All right, here we go. Podcasting time. It is Powerworks with Glenn Power from Powerworks Automotive, and we are here in the storage locker at Powerworks.
Yeah,
doing this.
Possibly the most dangerous recording we've ever done.
I mean, we're sitting around racks and racks of Borgenbeck parts.
Yep.
I've got Total oil transmission fluid from Volvo. The Helix, if I need to grab a bottle of that when I leave.
You don't want that in the Jeep.
This is fantastic. We're at the shop, and we're talking cars as we always do. What's going on? We're going to talk about what's going on in the shop. But the goal of the program, as always, is to keep you informed, educated, and entertained when it comes to what you're driving, what you want to drive, what other people are driving. Because the one I love, and this is actually, you must experience this, is there's a lot of people carpooling to get to work.
Yep.
And you got the driver who may or may not know anything about his vehicle. And then you got the passenger seat mechanics who've got all the advice on everything. And I love the one, this is a cool one, I see this all the time, is when you're entering or leaving exits anywhere in the world, you might have speed humps, little indicators to let you know what's going on. You might have reflectors on the road for night, and you hit these things, and you might hit them, if you hit them at the right angle and at the right exact moment, you can cause some problems to your vehicles. And I always see, at least once a week, someone who's gotten on or off an exit, pulled over to the side, walking around their car, trying to figure out, what's that new noise I'm hearing? There's a new vibration, and I just hit something. What is that? And they're walking around doing a visual check. And it's like, well, those people are in the car with you right now. We're going to try and give you a little bit more information so that when that funny thing starts happening, you can at least have an educated ability to assess what's going on until you get it to the garage to let the professionals do the work.
We've got a car in. I was just looking there. It's not actually in the garage at the minute, but we've got a car with us at the moment that there's a little bit of a noise on it. We reported some suspension work on the last service, and the customer was like, yeah, we'll just keep an eye on the tyres and we'll leave it. And he said, but if my wife notices a noise, she's going to tell me it needs fixing. Let's see how it goes. She noticed the noise. She said, it's fine. He explained. Yeah, no problem. We'll leave it. His wife borrowed someone else's car, which was the same as their car to go to school, and said, their car's so much better than mine. Which is the same model. Yeah,
same year, the whole thing?
Pretty much of a muchness, but he's like, that drives much better than my car. And then gets in her car and says, I can't drive that again now.
Really?
So this is what happens, right? We do it all the time. We get bearings and tyres and stuff that's noisy on cars, but because it happens, especially with tyres and bearings, it happens gradually. Yeah. You don't notice it if you're driving 30, 40, 50 kilometres every single day until you get in a car that doesn't have that noise, and you think, quiet in this car.
Yeah, what's going on here? Yeah. I always find it amazing just changing tire brands or sticking with the same brand but changing to a different model of tire can totally change your ride.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain tires that we won't use. Probably not a good idea to mention brand names, but there are well-known brand names that we don't use on certain cars that we will say to customers, do not use that tire.
Look, I drive a Wrangler. You buy a Wrangler, you get a set of tires that come stock. Good luck trying to ever replace those. But you don't want those tires. I mean, look, they're great tires. Don't get me wrong. You're going to go off-road. They're fun. Yeah. They are so noisy. You're driving that thing. It feels like you're driving a tank with the amount of noise that you're getting. Yep. Who wants that?
Some people.
Yeah.
How many times you've been on the road and like, is there a plane landed? No. It's a Wrangler that's 19 foot taller than it was when it left the showroom. That's not ever seen a sand dune in its life. Yeah,
we wanted to talk a couple sessions ago about and you had seen it, you'd watched it, the Bronco versus the Wrangler test off, and I had a complaint that the Broncos that they're testing against these Wranglers are not at all the same price point. But and the reason that just came to mind when you're talking tires and you're talking lift and stuff is I saw a brand new Bronco getting on to the highway the other day, which I thought was a Wrangler at first. I mean, and I was driving the Wrangler, and I thought it was a Wrangler. until I got in front of it. Because, I mean, they did everything to make it look like a Wrangler, which made me think, why not just buy a Wrangler if you want it to be looking like a Wrangler? I get to the front and I realize after I passed it, because I couldn't see any badge work or anything on the back, I've passed the thing and I'm looking back and go, oh, that's a Bronco. And I'm looking at the way they've juiced up the suspension, and I'm watching the guy drive, and he's having trouble. Like, it is not an easy turn. It's nothing about it said comfort anymore. They'd taken a decent ride, done all sorts of monkey business to it, and
ruined the whole on-road driving experience.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're sufficiently wealthy enough, shall we say, to have a vehicle like that just to use off-road at the weekend, maybe even trailer it to the side of the off-road area that you're going to explore, then great. But we get them in. I mean, that old Cherokee there.
Yeah, we're looking. So we've got a window in here. We're literally in a storage locker. We've got a window looking out over the shop, and literally Glenn is pointing to this sand brown Cherokee. This is old model. This is This is what, at least 10 years old.
She's a beauty.
Yeah,
she's like 20 years old.
Yeah, is it 20? Is it 20 years old?
But this thing has been like played around with, and then played around with again, and then played around with again, and there's just like the springs on there don't really fit, and it's just not something you can drive on the road. Like in the sand, off road, you don't need necessarily too much steering feel because the tires are going to slip on the sand anyway. But it's disconcerting, to say the least, on the road when you drive it. There's so much steering play. It's so disconnected from what you're doing as a driver to what's actually happening at the wheels.
I think there's two lessons here. First, and the first one is, think long and hard about the modifications you do to any vehicle, because the vehicle comes from the factory set up to work. It's not coming from the factory with, okay, it's kind of working, but now you're going to have to, mess around with it to really make it a great vehicle. You're not going in and changing out the stuff you're buying on a regular car. You buy it, you keep it, and away you go. Maybe change the tires, maybe change your shocks. That's about it. Dampers, as you like to call them.
Yes. Well, we prefer to speak English.
I think of the damper as that thing in the flue of a fireplace. The fire damper.
It dampens.
That's the one to think. Anyway.
Yeah.
But so as soon as you start changing stuff, and look, how many of us aspire with whatever vehicle we buy to, maybe raise it.
They don't truly make an off-road vehicle anymore, do they?
No.
Everything's a compromise.
Yeah.
Like
it's got to be able to do the road. It's got to be able to do a little bit of this, and we want a little bit more of one or the other. And as soon as you start doing that, think long and hard, because now you're changing braking, you're changing turning circle, you're changing height, which then has an implication with airflow.
One thing that I would do if I was making a car.
All right, here we go. We go. Glenn Power.
I'm open.
Powerworks Automotive.
I'm open to investment.
Listen, so whatever you're doing, you're driving, you're walking, you're working in the factory.
Yep.
You're an automotive expert. You're an automotive engineer. Listen now.
Prepare to get this on a billboard. So, when people modify cars, what do? They modify them for off-road, or they modify them to make them go faster, or to look like they could go faster. They never modify them to be more comfortable. Who's ever modified a car to be more comfortable?
There we go.
So forget the comfort then. All manufacturers, forget comfort. Or have your comfortable cars. Audi, make your A6s, make your A8s, Q7s. But give us back a Quattro. A proper Quattro. Yeah. Give us back one of those. Even put an electric motor in it if you have to. Just give us back something that's mental. And then nobody needs to worry about making their Q7 capable of doing a Swedish rally stage. They can just go and buy a Quattro.
But here, I want to go back to the comfort thing for a second, because this drives me nuts. Is I go and buy a decent value car.
Yeah.
Something like 25,000, 30,000 dirhams. Which is, to me, a lot of money.
Yeah.
I go buy one of these nice little cars. Why do they have to put these foam seats in them that are so uncomfortable when it's not going to cost them a whole bunch more to put a little bit better foam in that chair?
I like the idea of, everybody's sort of elderly relatives, or even not so old, but just been in the same house for a while, they've got a chair.
Yeah.
Particularly the dads and the granddads. They've got a chair.
Yeah.
and it's worn out, and it's like concaved. You have to hoover it out because they've been eating mince pies or whatever in it, you know. And in certain places,
biryani is down the back.
There's like cigarette ash and stuff. Well, what about you can buy your vehicle, but then you can choose the seat, not just the trim, not just the style, not just the stitching. You can choose your seat, and if
from
you
the
want
factory installed.
If you want a Barker Lounger in there, we'll make a Barker Lounger that will be perfectly safe on the road, and it will pass all the end cap tests, and it will be fitted with airbags.
That's exactly
and then when you trade your car in,
you take the
seat out and put it in there. So then you've got a brand new. So like 2045 comes around, James has finally bought himself a new Wrangler, but he's got his seat that he had 40 years ago.
That's what I want. I want the bench seat. And in fact, I was driving the other day, and we were having a discussion about, do you drive it rodeo style? And everyone knows the rodeo style. You got one hand on the top of the steering wheel, and that got me then talking about steering wheels, because I was going, I'll get the rounded steering wheel, which is nice, but if I had a square steering wheel, kind of like a Peugeot, then hands on the top, it's perfect for rodeo driving, which I never drive rodeo style. I don't, and I see people doing it, and then when people pass me driving rodeo, I kind of think, I'm going to try driving rodeo. And I just don't understand how they do it. I don't find it comfortable.
Yep.
But, I'm like 2 hands on the wheel, 10 and 2. I was trained. I took driving lessons, 10 and 2, keep 2 hands on the wheel.
Yeah.
And then every time I take one hand off, I hear Glenn in the background, you got a tire blowout. You're going to lose control of that car, buddy. It's like both hands back on the wheel,
I mean, I'm not an advanced driving instructor, so don't please take.
That's not even advanced. That's beginner.
Well, yeah,
you're the mechanic,
yeah.
But you're talking from the perspective of if you get a tire blowout and suddenly your steering goes crazy for a second, you got one hand on it, and you're driving rodeo. Maybe your other hand goes up in the air. Woohoo! Like,
oh, you'll be woohooing, all right. Yeah,
but where was I going with that?
You were talking about seats. You wanted a bench seat.
That's right. So go on. Thank you very much for collecting it.
All right. So, keeping notes on the notes.
Got to keep. Yes. I remember the good old days with the pickup trucks, which they don't do it anymore because everyone's got bucket seats. I guess they're safer. And you used to be able to get your Chev or your Ford or your Chrysler, or you're driving your Fargo. I don't know. People are driving in the UK, but it was a large bench seat where you could get 4 people sitting across.
None of that in the UK. The UK didn't make a car big enough.
Okay. So, and the beauty of the bench seat was you could have your loved one sitting beside you, and you're with your wife. You could have your arm around your wife, and you're driving rodeo. But you could, you could be cuddled up. It's cold, and they could be right up beside you, and that was nothing better than those days. Now you got a cooler in the middle and console,
an armrest underneath it. It's got a cool box which has got a really noisy fan. Yeah, something else to break.
I don't know why they don't have a heater box there too, so I can put my Swanson dinner in there. And I don't get it. They got the cooler. Why not the heater in there? A whole little microwave, a little kitchen station, especially in the minivans.
I mean,
I don't understand why they don't do that.
The problem is you go and get a rental. And the previous person had been taking advantage of the heater option, and they've just been heating fish and broccoli up. Then you've got a serious problem. Well, your car needs ozone treatment just to get rid of the smell.
Ventilation, come on.
Stinking it out. Or they've left it in there.
Oh yeah, the spillage.
Oh,
person's got a cod stew.
No, it's not good.
Sherry stew.
I don't know about cooking while driving. I think camper van, stop the car.
But don't you think? All these folks who are heading home and that, I still stand by it. At your service stations, you've got some homemade yet heat up meals, and you got a place in your car where you can put that dish in, so that by the time you get home, it's warm and ready to eat. You walk in the door, you sit down at the table with the family, and you've got the casserole there.
But you got to get it to be warm.
Yeah,
ready to eat.
It's got to be a warm,
not dangerous.
Yeah.
So what you got to get to 80 degrees Celsius.
Yeah. I think that can be done.
That's a severe danger.
You think?
Yeah. I think there are people that have done it, but I think it's dangerous. If you've got a warm drink and you have a rear heater, some of the cars have where your cup holders go, the heater pipes and the refrigerant pipes for the rear. If it's got a separate AC unit for a cool box or a rear AC, sometimes the heater pipes will go underneath there. You'll get warm cup holders, and the ones on the top of the dashboard on Passats and some of the vans. So the T6, they've got a cup holder on the top of the dash.
Really?
Which is right on top of the air vent.
So it keeps everything nice.
So if you've got the air on hot, then
keeps it hot.
Keeps it warm, yeah.
Yeah, not nice.
But I'm not sure about cooking. I mean, well, we just
We got to reimagine.
just wrap some salmon up in some foil and just put it on the top of the engine, strap it on there, and drive home.
You know what Joey Woo do with his bacon sandwiches is and of course it's halal. he sticks them on the vents on the top when he's driving. So because it's pretty much freezing cold where he is now.
Always got the heater on.
So he's got the heater on. He's got the defroster on, and he's got the sandwich over there under the defroster.
Wonder about the defogger on the back, the heater elements in screens. Wonder if they would be sufficient enough.
Here's an interesting one. I've never seen this before. Now, I clearly haven't been paying attention because this is not new. Range Rover Discovery, new model, which I'm not in love with. I know, you're saying the same thing. It's like,
yeah.
But I was looking at the rear window de-icers, which
zero
use for them here. I mean,
I know.
So, but I'm looking at these going, that's something you could have just left off the car
Yeah.
at this point. That would have taken the price down a few hundred dirhams easily.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, and typically, like in my vehicle and others, they all just go straight across. Discovery, circular, followed the exact radius of the windshield wiper on the back, which was a full sizer. And I thought, the rest of the car, okay, it's not my favorite. It's not something that makes me giddy, but I thought that was good design.
Yeah, I mean, you see it on some of the cars where the wiper will sit. They'll have more surface area of the heater element to stop the wiper blade freezing onto it, or to allow it to thaw out quicker. But let's be honest, like you say here, perfectly good opportunity for Land Rover to be like, right, on pre-purchase inspection, take those screens out. We'll take them back for stock.
Yeah.
And here's a plain screen. It's cheaper, and then we don't have to make any new ones for the ones that break in the rest of the northern hemisphere where it gets a lot colder in the winter.
I don't understand. I mean, and this is all manufacturers. There's no reason for that here. Like, truly. I mean, I know I've put mine on twice, 3 times. I can count it.
I've never done it.
I mean, it's silly, but what can you do?
But I guess it's probably just cheaper than to just make one type of screen, or to have one type of screen.
Yeah, it's coming out of the factory. That's not one of the things they change out. Although maybe it's just lazy as well. That's the other side I'm thinking, because so many things with vehicles, when you think about them and how they're all coming together, one of the things that we start to see happening all the time is specifications change.
Yeah.
And if you're getting all the specifications changing and you're getting different mufflers and stuff like that, why aren't they replacing those back screens and even putting they've got 7, 8, 9 rows of heating coil on there when maybe they only need 1?
Yeah,
2.
I mean, not so much in the rear windows now, really. Some cars still, but the rear quarters and the front windscreens have the antennas now for your in-car entertainment and everything else. But rear windows just don't change. There's literally like one company just been making heated rear screens, and the guys sat there now listening in his factory, being like, "What are these guys doing?
Yeah,
why they putting me out of business? Shut up!"
Exactly.
So no, I think it's very useful in the UK. For 6 months of the year, it's on pretty much every morning.
Yeah.
Because if it's not frozen, it's foggy.
Yeah,
and it's misted up, so it's the best way to deal with it. But I mean, it is interesting how those designs come about. Like, some thought's gone into it over something that we all take for granted. Especially since we don't use them here.
Yeah.
But even in the rest of the world where you do use them, you take it for granted. I'd like them to make them have little messages in. So when you turn it on in the morning, but you don't know what the message is, I'm sure you could. There's some sort of nanotechnology that could allow them to rearrange themselves.
Yeah,
just have little messages in. So well, we kept walking past the Tesla Model 3 that was in the other day, and every time we got near it, it like flashed at us, and the big C came up on the screen inside and told us it was in high alert for invaders or whatever it wanted to tell us. So all cars are connected all the time.
Yeah.
You could have that, car hears you having an argument with the wife
Yeah.
or one of your kids in the morning. You turn your demister on for the rear window, and it just has a little message on there. Just like chill out, man.
The magic 8-ball. It's a magic 8-ball for the car.
So the button to turn it on could be a picture of an 8-ball.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to get.
That's a gimmick to sell.
There we go.
If you ever need a gimmick to that, we'll be on the next Nissan. Definitely.
Not Nissan, but I want to talk Toyota for just a second, and you'll see that I've thrown this into the notes. The Innova, which is very popular
in next. Ridiculous.
It's very popular if you go to Indonesia and places like that, and it's a, what do they call it? The executive business carrier. That's what I'm seeing the title of that here. It's an executive business carrier, the Innova 2020, and it's essentially a small SUV, but really not an SUV. It's you know what? It's not an SUV. It's a small van. That's what it is.
An SUCK. It sucks. What a car.
Hey, easy. I was behind one today. It was a taxi, but I was behind one. So I spent quite a while taking a look at it. And I got to say, form factor, I've driven one of these things before. It is what it is. They're not expensive. Here you're looking at about 97,000 dirhams for a pretty nice equipped model. 7 or 8 seat. They call it an MPV. It's an MPV. 6-speed automatic, 2.7 liter 4-cylinder engine, 6 speeds, as I said.
The MPV is maximum pollution vehicle. Those Toyotas, especially, the old ones had that 2.7 thing in.
Yeah. Hold on. With this thing, with the Innova, your dreams come true.
Right. So, how's that?
and here's the best one. I just went to the trim.
Oh, they don't tell you why.
No, because it's amazing. But I went to the trim. So it starts at 97. I went to the trim model thing. There's just one. This is it. You get what you get.
Drab.
No, it's not bad. But you know what I liked about it as I was looking at it? And of course you can put the little wing on and maybe get the black. It looks kind of nasty, as in get out of my way. But I was looking at it. I was looking at this MPV this morning. I was driving behind. It was filled with 7 people. So I know, but I'm behind this thing and I'm watching it corner, I'm watching it turn, I'm watching it at the lights, and it cornered well. It didn't have that leaning over, looks like it's going to topple over kind of thing. There were 2 guys sitting in the very back seats that were
7 people weighing it down.
That's the thing. I was looking at this and I was counting. So there were 7 people in it. This thing was weighed down. The back suspension was beautiful. It was still. It didn't look like they were carrying. Like these guys were heavy hitters.
Well, yeah, it was probably the Tory party cabinet. Social distancing.
So I was impressed as an MPV. I don't know if you had any luggage where you'd put it. That's the only problem. But with all these MPVs, where do you put luggage?
Well, you don't.
Yeah.
What do you need luggage for?
Yeah.
If you're accepting the fact that you are going to drive an MPV that is an Innova, you have given up. You don't need luggage because you're going nowhere.
It's interesting when I'm looking at the MPV. It reminds me of a Previa inside, just smaller. And they got this cool feature because you've got the passenger and the driver, of course, have air conditioning on the dash. Those sitting in the back, they've got roof air conditioning, and behind the roof air conditioning units, mood lighting. It's pretty awesome.
Mood lighting.
Space design, they call it.
What mood?
It's beautiful mood.
Bored.
What don't you like about it? Like, maybe really?
I don't like it. You know what? I'm looking at that now, and I'm thinking to myself, when you close the door, it's going to sound like one of the windows are falling out. It's going to scream and rattle on the road.
I don't think it's going to rattle. Yeah. I think it's not an expensive car, so you're not going to get the Mercedes Benz. I just spent 400,000 dirhams.
You're going for 10 no.
You know what I like about this car? Easy to get around with. So if I'm driving in the city, easy to get into parking spots with because they seem to have made them narrower. It's a great price point, so I'm not going to feel really bad when I get a little bit of a ding on it, and I've got to get the ding off the door from someone who's opened it up because they're in their too large of a car and they've angle parked into a straight parking spot, that person we've seen over and over. I just think this is great if I got to get my kids to school.
I mean,
if I was a delivery guy.
Yeah, but for like what?
Tried and true. It's Toyota. It's tried and true. The Mega Cruiser.
Yeah,
they've put all the technology and thought of the Mega Cruiser into the Innova.
30 years ago, that's the problem.
Those cars were designed well then.
Then they were actually probably out of date then, but that's the problem. See, it's cars like this, right? Cars like this, and cars like the Pajero, and there's nothing I can say about the reliability of a Toyota, a Mitsubishi, at all, because they are fantastically reliable. And I don't dislike them because I don't make any money out of fixing them because they never break. That's not the case. But it's cars like this that have caused us to have to suffer this ridiculously overly quick change to electric vehicles because they have polluted the place. They've been so far behind with emissions regulations for so long now.
Yeah, well, that's when we talk about why we see this sudden real surge, and it's trying to create this much greener environment and cut back on the pollution. The challenge is we've made cars more affordable, and we've made the entry point into it easier.
Yeah.
So we've done ourselves our own damage. But we've had this discussion, and you actually sent me a link talking about cobalt, which is kind of an interesting thing.
We have enthralling WhatsApp chats, but it actually wasn't. There was so many. There was a really good one in the New York Times, but I just couldn't bring myself to subscribe to read it all.
I get that problem as well, and I'm a media guy. The paywalls kill me after a while. It's like, but the thing, I got to say, this is actually a really good thing. Right now, the New York Times, $1 for a month.
Yeah, I saw that.
$1 a month.
Yeah.
And you get all their electronic stuff.
Always good stuff.
So, but did I buy it? No. But did I think about it? Yeah.
Yep.
Did I buy it? No. But I probably should, because that's how the New York Times, all the news that is fit to print is their motto. That's how they make all their money now. It's all off electronic.
Yeah,
and they,
who wants a newspaper anymore? Which is a shame, really. But
So Innova, we need to go give one a drive, but I'm excited by it. You're not so excited by it.
Right, okay. I'll do you a deal.
Yeah.
You trade the Wrangler in for one. And
I got two Wranglers. Which one?
Well, you choose. So it's
okay, here's the problem. The wife drives the hard top. It might be an all-out brawl in our yard if I say, well, we're changing the four-door for the Innova.
Yeah, but, Sophie's choice. And when you do trade the wife's in and you drive home in the Innova and she calls you and says, what are you, a taxi? Then it'll all have been worth it. But for 20,000 more, you could go and get yourself a Terramon, which will also get 7 people in, and it has better tech, and it's not as polluting, and whilst it's not the best VW they've ever made, it's better than that.
This is, we're getting back to the Cobalt. Don't worry. If you're hanging on the Cobalt story, don't worry, because this is, you need to, in fact, at this moment, you need to be thinking about investing in minerals and resources, because Cobalt is what you've already missed the boat, but maybe you can get in on it because there are some startups that are going to help you. But I want to just go back to this whole polluting car thing. This is why Mitsubishi stopped with the Pajeros, and why Mitsubishi seems to be really rethinking their automotive industry, their consumer automotive industry. I think it's just because they've milked, and the Mitsubishi guys will come back and they'll have a different take on that. I look forward to talking to them. But they've milked this era of the internal combustion engine without doing a whole real revamp of those engines. And now they're going, you know what? We're not into it.
What they did was they sold a ridiculously reliable car, which was very well priced, more than fairly priced actually, with zero R&D and zero improvements for 20 years. Yeah. So it cost them nothing. It must have paid for itself after the first 5 years, and then after that, every single one's just been pure profit. Yeah,
they changed the body panels a little bit, but nothing on the chassis changed.
Yeah, and what happened with that change was the old one, someone had an accident in one, slight little shun, so that looks all right. We'll make it look like that. They put a black stripe on the back in like 2010 or whenever it was, and then then they painted the roof and the mirrors black at the end for the signature edition.
The signature edition with the red seating.
Tell you what. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I mean, maybe there is a part of me that doesn't like them because I don't appreciate them for what they are. Because they don't do anything. When I look at one or drive one, they don't make me think of anything other than nothing.
Yeah.
It's just like it's the kind of car that
it's an affordable off-roader. That's what it is. And
yeah, but they don't have enough. The Pajero has no power. So if you get that stuck and then decide to lock it, it's got no power to overdrive the diff lock and the 4-wheel drive system to get you out of anything. Me and DJ know that to our cost. But we it's the kind of car that you drive it and you get home and say to your wife when you walk in or your kids, I don't actually remember getting home. I remember leaving work and I don't remember the drive. You know when you just zoned out?
Yeah.
Nothing to it.
Yeah.
They were shocking on fuel economy.
Yeah.
Really, really bad, those cars. Really, really, really bad, to the point where it's embarrassing and I can't... Well, I know why they only sell the diesel one in the UK. I cannot understand. In what world is that? That hasn't been acceptable. The kind of fuel economy and emissions coming out of those cars has not been acceptable for me for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, like I say, I've got to put my hands up and say that I took advantage of it because I needed to, and needs must, and that's probably the case for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily an aspirational car. For that kind of money, there are better cars that if you aspire to own a certain car, there are better cars for that kind of money that you would probably expect people to aspire to. But if you need a brand new car, they were the car to go for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they were definitely the price difference between a Prado and a Pajero, so the Toyota and Mitsubishi options at the same sort of size. It just wasn't justified. That Toyota is another 100,000 more expensive than that. Absolutely not worth it.
Well, there we go. So we'll see what happens with all these. We'll see where it all
Yeah, well, they've put us in the place now where everyone's rushing around digging parts of the world up. Well, and as we've said before, it's always impoverished parts of the world.
Yeah. Well, this is the cobalt, and this is sort of the side issue when we start talking about electric vehicles, because electric vehicles need batteries, and until they come up with the next gen of battery that isn't using natural resources to help create the process of storage of electricity, and our current batteries need the mineral cobalt.
Yeah.
Cobalt is a mined resource. Yeah. So now, if you're looking at all of the things, and it's a resource that is scarce, because you can't find it everywhere.
It's finite.
Yeah, it's finite.
Yeah, and it's worrying. Not just, I mean, one of the things I can't find it, but one of the things in the article I liked was, and this is just a little bit kind of light-hearted part of it, and there's not much else that is that the exposure to cobalt is actually beneficial in small doses. So it's a constituent of vitamin B12, and it's relatively okay to take small doses of it. But if you're going to a mine for 10 and 12, 15 hours a day, in working with it, that isn't good. And they've known about that since the 60s, because it was in Canada and there was a brewery that started putting cobalt in their brew to make sure that it had a good head.
Yeah.
I forget which one. I think I sent you this one. And then the bit that made me laugh was there was a surge of fatal heart attacks among heavy drinkers. Well, nothing to do with heavy drinking, but it had spiked compared to previous times when they weren't using cobalt. And I just, so for 60 years, we've known in the Western world, we've known cobalt in high doses isn't good for us. And then the Western world has gone to Cuba, Democratic Republic of Congo, some other places in the world where it's not everywhere in the world has this resource, Yeah.
Well, 2/3, and this is, I've posted it up, and then we'll post the link up to the New York Times article. 2/3 of the world's cobalt production is coming from the Congo. And so they're taking center stage.
I've just found it here. It was Zambia as well. So Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia, and Cuba. So None of those nations are fortunate like us in the Western developed world. And we've gone over there knowing about what this does to that, what this does to the human body, and put people to work by hand with, I mean, the pictures you see are not stock photos. They are pictures taken and captioned. There's one here, a woman and child break rocks at a cobalt pit.
Yeah.
By hand with they've not got gloves, masks, nothing on. And that's for billionaires to put in batteries.
I'm looking at where clean energy metals are produced. Copper, Chile, Peru, China. Nickel, Indonesia, Philippines, Russia. Cobalt, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Russia, and Australia. Russia and Australia, just a little bit. Rare earths, China, bit of the U.S., Myanmar. And then lithium, Australia, Chile, and China.
Australia should know better, but Australia have this problem with coal at the minute as well.
Oh man, see that's the whole thing.
They're so resistant to get rid of their dependence on fossil fuel mining, and it's ridiculous.
The other problem is then where are all these rare metals processed? And this is we're worried about all sorts of things. China, lithium, rare earths, cobalt, nickel, and copper all being processed 40% or more. Except for nickel, which is just under 40%, 40% or more, China. So they're doing the processing. Poor Chinese guys who are now being exposed to all sorts of toxins in the process of processing these minerals to make the batteries that are going to make our cars work. And it's kind of like, hold on a second, guys. Have we really thought this through? And
where are we going? We're not going forward, are we?
No. And the worst thing that gets me when we start thinking about our electric cars, and again, it's batteries, and don't forget, it's not just cars, it's our mobile phones. It's what are we doing with all those batteries that we're putting into the things that we're buying. We've got Rode mics on us for our video. Everyone's seeing the back of my head here. Hold on, just turn around. Hi. but they've got batteries in them, and then what do you do when it doesn't work anymore? You toss it. You're not going to EnviroServe and getting the boys over there to rip it apart and make it work so that we can put all the elements back where they belong. It's crazy.
No, it's we
out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly, and we're going forward on. Oh yeah. Look, the cars aren't producing any pollution on the road now. Look how great that is. But we're just offsetting it.
Yeah,
we're borrowing money to pay a debt.
Yeah,
that's all we're doing. I'm not some sort of weird sort of.
Hey, you want people driving cars because whether it's electric or not, they're going to have to fix the suspension. They're going to have to fix the electronics.
I'm not an activist or anything like that, but
just be
some sort of common sense, right?
Yeah.
So just reading this article in The Guardian, which is titled, how this was the one that had the anecdote about the Canadian brewery. So how the race for cobalt risks turning it from miracle metal to deadly chemical. And there's a section here that says, another paper said extended blood concentrations of more than 700, I assume, micrograms led to heart problems and impaired eyesight and hearing. And it considered pregnant women at the highest risk.
Yeah, all right.
Great. Excellent. So do this generation and the next then in one go.
Yeah.
And it says here, high concentrations of cobalt have been linked to the death of crops and worms that are vital for soil fertility.
What's the source for this?
This is on the Guardian newspaper. There'll be sources at the bottom, but it's a real big article.
So just go Google cobalt Guardian.
Yeah, I actually just Googled cobalt and looked through, and then the first article that came up was the Guardian.
Yeah.
So, but I got them on my Flipboard feed, and I just forwarded you that, and then there was another one, which the other one was talking about diplomatic and ultimately military tensions that could but probably will arise.
Absolutely.
Because of it. I mean, it's a scarce metal, and lots and lots of people make lots and lots of money out of fossil fuels at the minute. They're not going to be able to do that forever, and they've known this. I got told that when I was 10 by my school teacher, explaining to us there's anywhere between 30 and 100 years left of oil, depending on if we find new oil wells and all this stuff. Well, that was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's running out, and nobody seems to be wanting to say what they're going to do about that. We need to figure something out, and
figure it out quick.
It's got to be sustainable.
Yeah.
And I think the focus in internal combustion for the previous 10 years before 2006, 7, even after that, I guess, was just make the internal combustion engine more efficient.
Yeah.
You know, we
were along that. We were doing pretty good at that.
Yeah, we had I remember that we had a 1.2 turbo diesel Lupo that we used to sell in the UK, and we called it the 3L. It was called the 3L because it would use 3 litres of fuel for 100 miles of driving.
That's pretty good.
So that's not bad, is it?
No.
So, and nobody's saying producing internal combustion vehicles isn't dangerous and it's not polluting, because of course it is. Producing anything is. But the worry here is, and I may be missing something, but it doesn't seem to be the case. The worry here is that we're doing it so fast.
Yeah.
With zero thought for the repercussions of it.
I am still waiting to read what happens to the batteries that need to be swapped out when because we know batteries don't live forever. What's going to happen to those batteries? How are they being disposed of?
What about the rest of the car? I mean, does anybody actually... Well, there are Teslas now 10 years old. There are.
Yeah.
So they must have had batteries replaced, and there'll be ones that failed under warranty, and et cetera, and ones that have failed because of an accident. But are people paying, what, $25,000, $30,000 for a new battery?
Well, I did a show a while back with the guys from eMotorrad that do electric bikes. And I got to get in touch with them, because that's always an area that fails on, that they've had warranty recalls. It's for the batteries. And so they swap them out. But what do they do with the ones they swapped out? And I never, I'm thinking about that. I didn't ask that question. Well, what do you do with them? What's your plan? What's your environmental plan? And, let's be honest. We've not done a good job with our internal combustion engine vehicles. When they're done, what do we do with them? Because they're full of toxins. It's just like these boats, the ghost boats that they sail into India and then they strip them apart. And there's asbestos, there's the wiring, there's the reactions that have happened within the rubbers and stuff. What do you do with all that stuff? And what do we do with it now? Well, typically we crush them and we use them for stuff, but really they're just sitting there polluting. And we don't seem to have a clear, concise plan. At least I'm not hearing it. I'm not seeing it. No one's talking about it, because if someone was doing it, they'd be holding up, hey, we're doing it, saying, okay, your car's dead. We're now going to take it back to like the guys over at EnviroServe here in Dubai, what they do with electronics. We're going to take all those parts apart. We're going to recycle all the metals. We're going to recycle the wires. We're going to get the gold out of this, that, and the other thing. And we're going to make this an environmentally friendly disposal.
Yeah. Well, nobody's saying they're doing it, because nobody can do it. Yeah. Nobody can do it.
Even Volvo's not doing it. And I love the Volvo guys.
I've done with Volvo, because they said this, that, and the other about internal combustion, and then put a deal together with a Chinese manufacturer to make internal combustion engines, just under a different name, which is whatever,
Sneaky.
guys.
Sneaky.
But I mean, just to go back to this article from The Guardian, there's a couple of things here that are alarming. It says in Cuba, which is the third biggest cobalt reserve known on the planet, satellite analysis of the open cast, so they're all open cast, these mines, a nickel and cobalt mine at Moa in the Holguin province, shows a lunar-like landscape devoid of life for over 1,408 acres.
Wow.
570 hectares. While they say their research also shows that pollution plumes, so the weather has taken the dust and stuff, have contaminated 8 kilometres of coastline and 10 kilometres of the Cabañas River.
Wow.
But in better news, shout out to the guys in the Philippines, because it says here that 2 years ago the Philippines closed or suspended 17 nickel mines because of environmental concerns. So that's good.
Yeah.
Shows that people are saying, well, hang on, this ain't right. We're making money out of it, but this isn't sustainable.
Yeah.
You know, the asbestos is in Canada, right?
Yeah.
The place asbestos is there.
Yeah. They want to change the name.
And what a horrible illness asbestosis was.
Yeah.
You know, my dad was a miner, and all of that side of the family were all miners.
Stepfather was in tile, all dealing with asbestos linings of stuff, and all ended up with lung disease.
Yeah, ridiculous. The amount of people I know, it's just crazy to think that nothing's really changed. People are more worried about what comes out the back of an exhaust pipe than this. And this isn't me being anti-EV, because I'm not. I'm definitely not. I'm 100% behind it. It's a necessary change, but you know, it has to be done safely. I mean, nobody's gonna come and say, oh, you know, I need to fly to the UK tomorrow. I'm just gonna quickly whip up a plane and get on it. You just wouldn't. It's dangerous. You just think, oh, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. And it's no different. You can't. It's impossible to understate how dangerous this stuff is. And I thought we'd moved on from it. I thought we'd got on to my eyes are open. I'm not stupid. We have to take resources from the planet.
Yeah.
But let's just do it a bit safer. The internal combustion engines were going in the right direction, and say what you will or what you want about diesel and all that nonsense with all the German brands, VW in particular. You know, the petrol engines were as good.
Yeah.
And they were very, very clean. And I would take 20 years of gutless cars over 200 years of just dealing with pollution from mining.
I think there's the only challenge that we've got right now with our electric car, this momentum that's taken place is, and again, I don't think we go an episode without talking about Mr. Musk, who's unloading a lot of stock right now and making quite a bit of money. He sees the writing on the wall is what he does. But we've got a huge issue because we've got him who's created a tipping point. We've now got all the big old, the big blues, the ones we invest in, our blue chip stocks. They're all now reorganizing to make electric cars when really hydrogen is where they need to go. Yeah. And then hydrogen, because again, you've got some issues with just the production of this, but hey, it's coming. Once that is mainstreamed, then they're going to all have to pivot again. And this becomes, and hopefully, I hope that the guys who are doing this research and the gals that are doing this research, I hope that they're looking at their electric vehicles as a platform and saying, okay, we've already swapped out the way we're doing things. How much of a reswap is it going to be to put a hydrogen fuel cell in? And I think it's probably easier to go from internal combustion to hydrogen than it is to go internal combustion to electric back to hydrogen.
The battery issue is the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which don't seem to be a problem with the hydrogen fuel cell.
No.
And
because hydrogen essentially runs like an internal combustion engine.
Well, you can still use your hydrogen fuel cell to. There's a lot of. You see, a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle can still run an electric motor in your car. So you don't need to have internal combustion with it. You can take a fuel cell out. If they're standard size, you can take one out and fit one in. So refueling is a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
The storage of the hydrogen is what worries people. But, so did storing petrol.
Yeah. And
people didn't want to go over 12 miles an hour on a steam train because they thought the human body would dissolve. So, this is just part of moving on. But, the storage is probably going to take away from the ability to then universal fit fuel cells, because you can't dismantle a car to do that, and you're not saving any time. But you can just fill with hydrogen. They've been doing it for a while. There's no reason to. The whole infrastructure of the world doesn't have to change for refueling. Now that's not an excuse not to change. Just don't change because then we don't have to change. Like that's not an excuse. But it's a sensible one.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've just.
What's the byproduct of hydrogen? Water.
But you've also got
fresh water.
Fresh water. And producing hydrogen's requiring energy and all this stuff
yeah.
and everything. I get it, but it's the most abundant element in the universe, and it's everywhere. And
this is the time. This is the innovation to be researching on. Like honestly, this is the piece of innovation, because you put hydrogen fuel cells, and you start looking at this for more than just powering vehicles. But what about trains? And what about creating hydrogen fuel cell power plants in remote villages? And suddenly you're kind of going, oh, hold on a second. This is getting more interesting by the minute.
Yeah, I think, hydrogen fuel cells is something we could probably do a full episode on. And
we also need to do a show on the oil that we keep talking about, and oil changes and oil.
Oil's dead.
No, hold on. I'm looking over here. I got buckets of Total here, right here.
Yeah, we've got all sorts of oil there.
Yeah.
All sorts of it. Some real bad oil there, some real stinky oil.
So we need to have a chat about that.
Yeah.
Sooner than later.
Yeah, we do. But oil is dead, and long live hydrogen.
And there we go. That is a wrap. Another edition of Powerworks with Glenn Power from Powerworks Automotive. Hydrogen, Toyota Innovas. We still didn't talk about oil, but that's coming up. Thank you very much for listening. Go and check us out, the other programs that we've got up online, whether you're looking at Podaholics with a K or the James Cast. And hey, take a meander over to YouTube. You can see us in action. Thanks again for listening. Share the link. So long for now.